following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Well, as producer John at one point in time wanted to do so badly, he wanted to make sure that we took the biggest stories and made them first, right? Well, we're tossing things up in the air big time based upon biggest stories this week. NASCAR takes over another historic racetrack. How mad is Max Verstappen with Red Bull over the Christian Horner Helmut Marko scandals? We'll get into that. Williams has a decision to make amongst their two drivers. We'll tell you why and which driver made the cut. Tire problems for both NASCAR and potentially IndyCar. We'll detail all of those. We got a dad stepping aside for a daughter in the NHRA, and has silly season actually already begun? I mean, it's only March. Huh. Yeah, we got that and a whole lot more. Hope you're ready for it, because we're going to get into it. Yep, a little bit early, but you know what? Better early than late, right? CRN starts right after we take this short break. Stick around.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Well, let's get into it, shall we? I'm Steve West, along with Matt Nicholson, not pictured if you're on CRN Live on YouTube. producer John Myers. But trust us, he's here.
I got a face for radio. What
There
do
he
you
is.
want?
See, I told you, he was here.
I did too.
Welcome back into the show. We appreciate you joining us a little bit early. We're going to be diving out just a couple of minutes early as we join things going on over in COTA. We'll get to the schedule in a moment. First of all, a quick look back on last weekend. Formula E back in action in Brazil. Laps winding down. Mitch Evans trying to hold off his former teammate Sam Bird. Bird was being warned about high temperatures by his McLaren team. His battery was overheating. Bird saw an opening, took the chance on the final lap, got around Evans, claimed his first as a McLaren driver and its first win since claiming the 2021 New York E-Prix. Evans settled for second, trailed by Oliver Rowland, Pascal Wehrlein, Jake Dennis, Antonio Felix da Costa, Jean-Eric Verne, Stoffel Van Dorn, Max Gunther, and Sebastian Buemi in the top 10. Nick Cassidy not having a good day, finished outside of the points, but we mention him because he still retains the overall points lead. He's got 57 to Pascal Wehrlein's 53. There's a tie at 39 between Mitch Evans and Jean-Eric Verne. Jake Dennis sits in fifth with 38. We don't really go through the top 10 there. We will go through the entire team standings. How about that? I want to say Manufacturers' Cup, but that's Formula One. They do it differently in Formula E. Jaguar has the team lead, 96 points to 61 for Tag Heuer Porsche. What are they, Red Bull all of a sudden?
Yeah.
DS Penske has 57, McLaren 55, 47 for Andretti, Nissan 41, 39 for Envision. Got Maserati with 22. ERT Formula E has 2. Mahindra and ABT Cooper have none.
So are they the Williams in this scenario?
Yeah, it apparently is.
Sounds like it.
Yep. In the new manufacturers trophy standings, we got Jaguar with 123, 95 for Porsche. Nissan has 88, Stellantis 71, 2 for ERT, and Mahindra holding a goose egg. We'll detail that here in just a couple of minutes. There's not a whole lot of Formula E news, so we'll kind of let you know how these numbers kind of came about. Meantime, back to the racing recap from last weekend. And hey, we've said this for years. We've said it before. We'll say it again, and we'll continue to say it until he retires from driving. When we see Kyle Busch's name on the entry list for either an Xfinity or a Truck Series race, we pretty much automatically pencil him in as the winner. The reason for a pencil? Because on rare occasions, like last weekend, we have to erase it and put in a name in ink. That name? Christian Eckes. On lap 159 of the race at Bristol, Eckes got around Busch and was able to hold him off over the final 92 laps to claim a rather slim 0.14 second edge at the finish line. That's one of those deals where Dale Earnhardt Sr. earned the nickname the Intimidator because any driver who saw him coming up in their rearview mirror for some reason was paying more attention to him in the rear view than they were to the driving.
Right.
For young Christian Eckes to know that is Kyle Busch, by far and away the all-time series winner in races won in the Craftsman Truck Series.
Yep.
And to be able to keep his cool and keep him at bay. Impressive.
He can drive.
He can drive.
Especially when you had a garbage racetrack like the racetrack was doing.
Yeah, we're going to detail that in a little bit.
It was pretty impressive driving.
Yeah. We've got show and tell. John knows because he's been downloading all the pictures. Eckes, then Busch. They were trailed by Zane Smith, Matt Kraft, and Tyler Ankrum, Corey Heim, Taylor Gray, Rajah Caruth, Grant Enfinger, and Lane Riggs making an appearance in the top 10. Congratulations to him. So 3 drivers now locked into the playoffs in seed order: Rajah Caruth, Christian Eckes, and Nick Sanchez. The other win was by Kyle Busch, who's not eligible to run in the playoffs in the Truck Series, so that doesn't count. In on points at this time, Tyler Ankrum, Corey Heim, Ty Majeski, Taylor Gray, not Tyler Gray, Taylor Gray, Matt Crafton, Grant Enfinger, and the other Alabama driver, Brett Holmes. Holmes has a 5-point lead over Daniel Dye for that 10th and final playoff position at this time. You say the other Alabama driver, who's the first? It's Grant Enfinger, just in case you missed. Things came down to who could take better care of their tires in the 500-lap Cup Series race, and the track just wasn't taking rubber from the Goodyear Racing Eagles. Again, we'll detail that in a minute. In the end, a driver who has really done it the best, and look at the top 3. When you go through the top 3, think about these 3. They are all veteran drivers who are all 40 years of age or older.
Right.
They've been doing this for a while. They know how to take care of their tires, okay?
Yep.
Hamlin gets the win. Denny Hamlin claiming the win at Bristol last fall and is now, he didn't use that now retired phrase of "I just beat your favorite driver," all of them, but he did. He got by his Joe Gibbs Racing teammate Martin Truex Jr. and sped off to a win by more than a second over Truex Jr. and Brad Keselowski was third. Then you've got youngsters like Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson, relatively, John Hunter Nemechek, Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, Ty Gibbs, Christopher Bell. 5 races, 5 different winners in the Cup Series. Kyle Larson is the leader in seed order, then Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, William Byron, and Daniel Suarez. As for the ones that are in on points, John's favorite driver, Martin Truex Jr., leads them. Then it's young Ty Gibbs, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, Alex Bowman, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, John Hunter Nemechek, and Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has a rather slim 12-point lead over Michael McDowell for that 16th and final playoff slot right now. Again, real early in the going. We'll see how it goes.
Pretty sure that that's going to drastically change tomorrow.
Drastically? Okay. I like the word drastically. That's why I wanted, that stuck out to me. I wanted to make sure that I heard that correctly.
Yep.
Today, racing weekend will kick off. Craftsman Truck Series running at COTA. It's the XPEL, XPEL, XPEL 225 on the 20-turn, 3.426-mile-long road course near Austin, Texas. The race is set to air on Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio beginning at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Central Time. The youngster, Connor Zilic, you know, the kid who's not even 18 yet, jumped up and impressed everyone in claiming the very first pole in his first ever race.
That is 1.1 seconds faster than the entire field put together.
How long before this kid finds his way into full-time upper-tier NASCAR racing? I'm thinking, 2025 ain't coming soon enough.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb. Well, really not a limb, just a really big branch hanging off of a tree because it's stable.
It's about as thick as the tree.
Yeah. I'm going to say that he'll probably, by the time he turns 18, in which we know his first oval race in a truck is going to be none other than Talladega.
Yeah.
I'm going to say he'll probably be in an Xfinity car on the Roval.
And be full-time next year as shooting for Rookie of the Year. Xfinity Series later on this afternoon will take Dakota in the Focused Health 250. That'll air on Fox Sports 1 and PRN Radio beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central Time. And Cup Series moonlighter Kyle Larson took the pole for this evening's race. Indycar leads up to the first ever $1 Million Challenge this evening. Qualifications. That'll air on Peacock and IRN Radio, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Time. I might actually try and check that out tonight if I remember. Formula One heading down under for the Australian Grand Prix. 14 turns, 3.2 miles long. That's the Albert Park course in Melbourne, Australia. The race will air on ESPN late tonight, midnight Eastern Time, 11 p.m. Central Time. I'm not planning on being awake for that. I'm just going to say.
That makes 2 of us.
We all know that you're going to be shocked to learn that Max Verstappen claimed the pole for the race.
Shocker.
I'll give you a moment to recover from that. Okay, that's enough. Sunday, we get into IndyCar's heat races, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Central Time on NBC and IRN Radio. They're rolling around the 19-turn, 3.06-mile-long Thermal Club's Twin Palms course. This is just one of several potential layouts for this privately owned club track. Why they chose this one, I'm not really sure, but hey, it ought to be fun to check it out.
Yeah.
On TV, first, you'll get the Cup Series race on COTA. That'll be the Echo Park Automotive Grand Prix. Same road course that they're going to be running today in Craftsman Truck and Xfinity, so I'm not going to detail it again. Fox and PRN Radio got you coverage starting 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Central Time. I say on TV because, again, the NHRA is in what we would used to call tape delay mode. They don't use tape anymore. It's all digital, but still, doesn't matter. NHRA's finals of the Lucas Oil Winter Nationals from In-N-Out Burger Dragway in Pomona, California. You know, it used to be called Auto Club Dragway. Now it's In-N-Out Burger Dragway. It will actually happen live starting at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central Time. We thought IndyCar was going to get loud and beginning out in the West Coast. The NHRA actually starts earlier, and they're going to be louder. Thing about it is, despite the fact that that begins at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central Time in real life, you won't get to check it out on television until Fox Sports 1 begins showing it at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central Time. Okay. Formula E is the only series that we covered that's off this weekend.
What's so important not to air it live? What do they got going on at 11 o'clock?
Fox would rather air a soccer game than a race.
There you go. What soccer game? Is there any good?
I don't know.
No, here's the truth.
They would rather air
It doesn't matter.
UEFA Euro Champions League.
Oh, yeah, because, people in Kansas care.
Yeah. No. The North Dakotans care.
Oh, is that who cares?
Yeah,
okay, thanks. I appreciate that. Real quick bit of housekeeping here, and then we'll take an early break. I mentioned the fact that we are following now the manufacturer's trophy standings in Formula E. There's really no other news coming out of Formula E this week, but I wanted to go ahead and detail this because we talk about how the team standings or the manufacturer's cup, both Formula One and Formula E, take the numbers for the teams or the manufacturers and combine the two drivers' results, right? Pretty much the same thing in the manufacturer's trophy. How about who supplies what power units to whom, basically, is how it goes. So we're going to break that down. Jaguar, the leader in the manufacturer's trophy points, supplies themselves and Envision Racing. Porsche supplies not only themselves, Tag Heuer Porsche, but Avalanche Andretti. Nissan is a supplier to themselves and the Neo McLaren operation. Stellantis supplies DS Penske and Maserati. It does make sense because Maserati is actually a brand name under the Stellantis brand. ERT makes their own power units, while Mahindra self-supplies, but they also supply ABT Cupra. With that goose egg, it just shows how bad things are going for them. And they just, 4 seasons ago, I think? Mm-hmm. They were fighting for wins and titles at Mahindra. So something's gone bad wrong over there for Mahindra Racing, and they're going to have to figure it out.
I took a total shot in the dark, and I was right. Fox is there in soccer in the morning.
I'm not surprised. What UEFA games is?
Serie A Fem, ACF Fiorentina versus Inter Milano.
Y'all have fun with that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be watching something else or doing literally almost anything else.
Yeah.
Like preparing for racing. We'll talk some NASCAR when we come back on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Start off with a little bit of overall NASCAR news because this actually affects everybody who's running this weekend. Truck Series, Xfinity, and Cup. Now, last year, we're going to show you a picture on CRN Live on YouTube about just how bad this got. NASCAR working with COTA trying to alleviate the chaos that occurred on the start of really not only the start of the race, but every restart last year. Look at that picture. That came off of Fox Sports, by the way. Thank you to them for that. And for the next picture that we're going to show you in a minute. The field would hit the restart zone at about halfway down the front stretch. That's where the Geico restart zone was. By the time they got to the hairpin turn 1, they could be 7, 8, 9 wide trying to make that turn. It would result in cars getting spun out and stuff like that. I mean, that right there is chaos. Matt's over here counting how many wide they are.
I see them 8 wide.
8 wide. Okay. So I wasn't wrong.
It's a racetrack, people. You're supposed to do stuff like this. You're supposed to.
Yeah, but
at a road course.
Even that's a little bit more chaotic than really any other road course than we go to.
Well, do you want to see whose internal fortitude's bigger and who's not? Let's work that way.
Yes, that's true. Well, what they want to do is try and thin the field out a little bit more before they get to turn 1. So instead of the restart zone being about midway down the front stretch at COTA, they moved it further back towards the final turn of the course, which is turn 20. Turn 20 right onto the front straight. Once the leaders get around turn 20 and onto that front straight, they're pretty much going to get right into the restart zone. Well before the rest of the field will make it up to turn 1. There you see it right there.
Yeah, no, that ain't going to work. Somebody's still going to wreck, or either somebody's going to still send it 9 wide into turn 1.
It's going to be interesting to watch this because there are going to be people that are going to be jumping for it. They think, though, it should thin the field out and keep us from seeing the traffic jam going into turn 1. You can see where it is. I mean, literally, you come off turn 20 and start heading down the front straight. You're finally straightened out before you get really into the gas in the restart zone. Like I said, they're hoping that that's going to thin the field out. Now, what it will do, obviously, is, I mean, how many, there you go. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. How many cars you see in that picture right there? And this is COTA, last year, Cup Series,
1, 2,
as you're looking
3,
on CRN
4,
Live.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Keep in mind that, 40-car field in the Cup Series.
You can hear Matt just
counting. I know.
You're counting.
I see 35.
All right. 35 cars.
At least 35.
34 of which are right there in that group. You're not going to get that many because as the first 2, 3, 4 rows maybe start to go in the restart zone as they now have it, you're still got the back of the field, the final 6 or 7 rows, really, at least, that still have yet to make their way around turn number 20. So it will thin the field out some.
That's where the wreck's going to happen in turn 20 because you're going to have some.
You're going to have somebody that's going to want to try and jump.
You're going to have some goon. Let's say it that way.
Sure.
I don't want to say what I wanted to say. You're going to have some goon try to overshoot and get a charging start going into turn 1 because you're going to have your spotters that are standing in turn 1. The reason I know this is because I'm going to be nice. You're going to have your spotters in turn 1 looking down the front stretch going to turn 20.
Sure.
Their eyes are on the restart zone, and those trucks that are in probably, I'm going to say, from 18th to 20th back, or cars.
Sure.
Green. Somebody's going to overshoot 20 and cause a jam up in 20, which would have been the same jam up you happened in turn 1. So, in my opinion, this is a moot point.
Okay. I do have this question, though, because there's this rule that states before you get to the start-finish line, you have to stay in line.
Outside's fair game. Outside, to the outside or to the right of any vehicle that's in front of you, it is fair game. If you're on the bottom.
Oh, this is going to be fun, boys.
If you're on the bottom and you shoot 3 wide, it's still fair game because you're technically going to the outside of the car that's in front of you. That means that the outside line, if you're on the inside and the outside line doesn't go and you shoot it 3 wide, it's fair game because you're going to the outside of the car that's in front of you. That's the legality of the move.
This is going to be real interesting to watch this process. I get the feeling this will be changed real quick.
Key phrase here, you're about to find out whose intestinal fortitude is the biggest.
Indeed.
That's the rated Y7 version of putting it.
Yep. I did this stuff really in chronological order because they talked about that early in the week. Later in the week, maybe the biggest news when it comes to NASCAR. So I did bury the headline a little bit here. NASCAR announced kind of out of the clear blue sky, that this week they took over Winston-Salem Speedway Incorporated. Now, that may not mean much to you right off the surface, but when I tell you that Winston-Salem Speedway Incorporated was the company that had the lease operations for race activity at historic Bowman Gray Stadium in North Carolina, that might actually mean a little more to you. What do you think? With the acquisition of the company, that means NASCAR is now the manager of all racing operations at the quarter-mile track. This is the one, as John brings up the picture right there. That is from NASCAR.com. Thank you very much for that picture on CRN Live on YouTube. That track right there hosted the first ever NASCAR-sanctioned race on pavement. Pretty cool. Ben Kennedy, Senior VP of Racing Development and Strategy for NASCAR, said, quote, as NASCAR's first weekly racetrack, Bowman Gray Stadium holds a special place in the history of our sport. We're grateful to the Hawkins family's multi-generational legacy of leadership at this historic track, and we're thrilled to oversee racing at one of the crown jewels of NASCAR Regional. I use those terms very, very pointedly. I wanted to make sure that was included in the quote. But Kennedy continued on, said, quote, we look forward to leading the racing operations of the facility in partnership with the city of Winston-Salem to preserve the history and legacy of this racetrack for the next generation of racers and fans. This particular lease for NASCAR goes through December 2050. Bowman Gray Stadium was built in 1937, is the longest-running NASCAR-sanctioned weekly racetrack. It was back in 1949 that Big Bill France joined in with Alvin Hawkins, the Hawkins family. They founded NASCAR, brought the new NASCAR series to the short track that fall. It also doubles as a football stadium in the fall. And the whole facility is owned by the city of Winston-Salem. Take note, city of Birmingham. You can own a short track racetrack and still make it successful instead of ripping it down. Larry Langford. From 1958 to 1971, Bowman Gray Stadium placed host to what we now call the Cup Series. They ran 29 races. Winners include legends and NASCAR Hall of Famers like Richard Petty, Junior Johnson, Glenn Wood, David Pearson, Ned Jarrett, and that's just a few of them. A lot of people have come out, and they're very happy about this. And I'll admit, I'm happy about it too, because the lease NASCAR signed that says we're going to make sure that we are the racetrack operations sanctioning body through December 2050 ensures that this track, unlike Birmingham International Raceway, won't go the way of the dodo bird. Number one. But number two, let's not overreact here. Just because NASCAR was willing to spend untold gobs of amounts of money to go and transform the LA Mausoleum from a football field into a quarter-mile short track, and Bowman Gray Stadium is already said quarter-mile short track, and that they did some of the testing before actually putting out onto the racetrack back in 2021. They did testing with, let me think, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeff Burton, and Tony Stewart, I think.
Clint Boyer.
Was it Clint Boyer? I take that back. It wasn't Jeff Burton. It was Clint Boyer. Mm-hmm. They did testing of what was then the next generation car, what we now call the Gen 7 car. That was done at Bowman Gray Stadium. Would I like to see them take the Clash from the LA Mausoleum to Bowman Gray? Absolutely. Do I think they're going to do it? I'm not holding my breath. I'm not holding my breath.
They've got the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever. This would automatically, sight unseen, as soon as they was to say the words Clash coming home, as in the Carolinas, Clash coming to Bowman Gray, that would immediately make this the hardest ticket in history to obtain.
And I have to admit, I haven't looked it up. How many people are able to get it? 18. Oh, wow.
18,000.
Yeah, that'd be a tough ticket to get.
Hardest ticket in history to get.
Ouch.
And the video that they had that they released, and if you listen to the subliminal messaging, Truck Series schedule is expanding by 2 races next year.
And if you think about where the Truck Series got their start way back when, almost 30 years ago now, They were almost exclusively short tracks.
Mesa Marin, Louisville. Yes, I said Louisville.
I mean, what was the biggest track they ran on?
Phoenix.
Just a little over a mile.
Tucson.
Think about it. That would go back to the Craftsman Truck Series roots. We'll find out. I'll see what NASCAR's got in the plans. All right.
Time for show and tell.
Yes, it is. Here we go.
Here's where I need a telestrator.
Yeah, if only we had one. All right, we noted in the recap Goodyear's Racing Eagles were not allowing the track to take rubber at Bristol Motor Speedway last weekend, and the track conditions just wouldn't take rubber. But either way, the drivers noted they could only go about 40 to 50 laps in the Cup Series before a severe drop-off in performance of the tires, which prompted Goodyear and NASCAR to allow the teams to get an extra set of sticker tires for the race. They made that decision about halfway through, and here's the thing, they still pretty much ran out of tires. Matt, you were there at Bristol.
I was.
You took the first couple of pictures that you're about to see on CRN Live on YouTube. Go ahead and throw the first one up there for me, John.
I did.
This is a picture of Bristol Motor Speedway. This is, I think you said, just before the Truck Series race?
This is before the Truck Series race, after practice and qualifying for Cup and the Truck Series. This is standing probably, I'm going to say, 10 feet back towards turn 4 on the front stretch.
Okay. And if you know anything about racing, you know that as a track takes rubber, especially on a concrete track, which is, for all intents and purposes, white, you would expect the rubber to be rubbering in and it create big black marks, correct?
Correct.
What do you not see as you look back to the turns there?
You don't see any rubber on the racetrack, period.
What you see are marbles.
Yeah.
It's not worked in. It's sitting on top of the track.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Goodyear's fault? Well, drivers didn't want to blame Goodyear. NASCAR really didn't want to blame Goodyear. Goodyear's director of racing, Greg Stucker, got on to Sirius XM Satellite Radio's NASCAR channel Monday and said yesterday was a drastic departure from what we expected. The goal now is to just try to figure out what happened, but I think we're approaching it really positively. Thing is, the drivers were generally positive about it as well. John, let's go ahead and throw this up here because this next, again, this is Matt from Bristol. This is a picture of Alabama driver Brett Holmes in the 32. And you say, well, wait a minute. I'm starting to see what looks to be the track rubbering in down on the bottom, right?
Not rubber.
What is that, Matt?
All right, on your bottom lane where the truck is, that is where they attempted to run a lane of resin, not PJ1, but resin.
I'll get back to that.
On the bottom groove. Groove number 2 that is right up above the truck.
Where it looks like there's rubber up there by the wall.
That's where the resin was. Now, let's go back to our dirt racing terminology here. When you're running one lane when you're running the bottom lane and you start seeing the groove of the track working up, that's called dusting the track off. You're dusting the track off. Essentially, this resin didn't take into the track and wasn't running in. It was dusting itself off and running itself up the track with a combination of rubber coming off the tires. That's why it looks like it's rubber in the track, but it's not. That's the resin and the resin and the rubber sitting on the top. The very top groove right there at the top of the wall, right beside where it is, that is all rubber and all resin that kept getting rolled up and rolled up. Now, under the cautions, whether it be a stage caution or a nitro caution, they done one of the craziest things I've ever seen at an asphalt hard surface track that is non-dirt. I should have just said non-dirt to start with. I went technical there. They were taking one of the Toyotas of the track drying team, one of the Tundras. Shameless plug there. Had a drag behind it. Something that you would see at a baseball stadium. Truist Park, Yankee Stadium, Fenway Park, wherever you like to go to.
Downtown Birmingham at Regents Field.
Downtown Birmingham, Regents Field, Toyota Field in Madison County.
There you go.
Wherever you want to go with it. They were dragging the top lane of the track.
For what purpose?
Trying to run that rubber and resin in, but guess what? It didn't take.
Didn't work, boys and girls. Now, he mentioned the PJ1 resin situation. PJ1 is another traction compound that we've seen used many, many tracks, many different times. Heck, it's been used at Bristol. But there was a threat of weather, rain.
It never materialized.
That never actually materialized last weekend. But because of that, apparently, the way I heard it anyway, you lay down PJ1 and it gets rained on, it turns what should be a traction compound into an oily surface. So, in other words, ridiculously slick. Resin is supposed to, keyword, resin is supposed to not be as bothered by the rain. So therefore, you can lay the resin down and it still helps the traction. It's not as good as PJ1, but again, it doesn't turn to oil when it rains. Problem is that the resin wasn't exactly reacting properly to the track either, as you noted.
It wasn't because, and I'll give you an example, during Cup qualifying, especially when they got down into the final round, the final 10. From Group A and Group B of round 1, low times was anywhere from 15:13 to I think 15:27. About a tenth among the top 10 cars. Quick time in Group B, second round of the final 10 was barely 15:35.
Slowed pretty well.
The track lost 0.2 of a second that quick.
Yeah. And then you go into the race, and I'm going Cup race only here, okay? You go into the Cup Series race, again, you go about 40 to 50 laps, and they weren't going qualifying speed during the race because now you got a field of, 38, 39 cars out on the track.
Yeah.
But they were still doing about 15.5 or so second laps on new tires. And then I'd never heard this term. I understood it right off the bat, but I'd never heard any commentator use this term when it came to tires. That somewhere in the 40 to 50 lap range, the tires, to quote Fox Sports, shut off. Mm-hmm. Which means that the performance dropped off significantly. Right. And now all of a sudden, those drivers who had been doing about 15.5 second laps were doing 18 to 19 second laps.
Baby on the throttle.
At that point in time, you're a rolling roadblock.
I'll tell you when I knew it was going to be something was going to be a problem. Is I stood on the pit wall and you could see from the middle of 3 and 4 down to the exit of turn 2, because that other area was blocked by the transporters for Truck Series and Cup. All right. When you could stand there and listen to the throttle response in the corner, the Cup car specifically were having to wait on the car until at least past the center of the corner. Some even into the center of turn 4 and turn 2. Ouch. Not the dead center of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Yeah.
The only car that was able to get to the throttle quicker, but yet he dearly paid the price for it in the race, was Ryan Blaney. He got to the throttle at the dead center of turn 3 and turn 2.
I'm going to ask you to bring this up here because I think probably the Twix, whatever post from Chase Briscoe probably said it best. So I'm going to let him bring it up so we can quote it. But as far as the drivers are concerned, most of the drivers said that they did appreciate that Goodyear did listen to them because the drivers basically wanted Goodyear to bring a tire that did fall off in performance. They said that they appreciated things being basically put into the driver's hands, allowing them to be able to go out there and really bring it on, have it in their hands, as opposed to having, for example, a rock solid tire that outlasted a full gas run. And a full gas run, it's about 125 laps or so. You don't want a tire that's effectively in perfect shape when you have to come down and get gas. I personally would prefer this because there is a strategy involved there that says let the tires, to use the Fox Sports term, shut off at about lap 75 to 90. Mm-hmm. And then start making the driver and the crew chief start to figure out, okay, do we try and go to the end of the gas run, or do we go ahead and come down for some new Goodyears right now? Now, we're going to show you a couple of pictures here. How bad was this? Well, Colleague Racing showed this particular picture. This is, what'd you say this car was off of?
That was off of the 7 car.
Okay. So that's Colleague Racing / Spire Motorsports.
No, check that. No. It was off the 16 car. Sorry.
Okay.
That's
So that is
16 car.
Colleague Racing. Look at that. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
That's pretty bad. Stuart Haas Racing. And the next picture that's about to come up on CRN Live on YouTube. See the same thing going on. I mean, these tires are worn down to the cords, and they're taking these things off, 75 laps into a run? Tops?
At least.
At the most.
Yeah, at the most. Yeah, excuse me.
Some of them closer to 50. Now, I'll give Goodyear some credit here, because they built a tire that got to that point, showing that much cord or more, and you didn't actually have a blowout. What you would have is suddenly a slow leak, which you'd expect. The tire is coming apart. But again, it's not like the tire failed so fast that it created a spin-out situation and the driver took out half the field. No, it was a slow process. And for the drivers, they stated, yeah, it was kind of fun a little bit. Witness Chase Briscoe.
Right after the race on the 18th, he put on his Twitter, X, Twix, whatever you want to call it.
Twix.
In the video of the in-car camera, and his quote was, "This is by far the most fun thing ever as a race car driver. Literally feels like a video game on easy mode when you have new tires and the rest of the field is on old to old tires." I just sat here and watched it and counted in one lap from point A back to point A.
Mm-hmm.
He passed 9 cars in one lap.
At Bristol.
Like he was sitting still.
Now, DW would say this when he was behind the wheel, but he was also well known for stating it when he was up in the Fox Sports booth. He wouldn't say they came down for 4 new Goodyear tires. He'd come down and say they're coming down for 4 new Supermen.
Yeah.
Okay? Because literally at this point in time, especially last weekend, those 4 brand new tires made Chase Briscoe feel like he was Superman.
Ding.
Because he was making up ground hand over fist without much of a problem, because the rest of the field had yet to come down and get new tires. It was entertaining to watch once. I don't want to see that every race. And nobody else does either. Back to Greg Stucker of Goodyear, who said, quote, "For the past year or so, the drivers have been pushing us to be more aggressive in our recommendations to be more aggressive in tire wear and let them manage the tires over the course of the run." I think that's what we saw yesterday. It was Monday when he said it. Tire management was key. It was probably the most important thing of anything in the race. Now, I'm not advocating that we have tire wear as severe as we saw yesterday every race. Thank you, Greg. But I think it's a place where we could draw a line in the sand, and I think we can learn from it. He added that it is the same tire that they brought last September, added that weather conditions were much different. It was actually much cooler, and some people feel like that was at least part of the reason. You're not 100% sold on that, but could it be any form of a factor whatsoever?
Maybe 10% of it.
Okay. Just a whole lot of stuff going on there.
I'm telling
Let's
you.
face it.
I'm telling you, what happened with it was the package on the car that they brought. They didn't run the short track package. They ran the intermediate package on the car.
We'll get back into this a little bit more when we come back, because Goodyear has made promises, and Greg Stucker continues in his quotes where he credits the drivers for what they were able to do.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in, talking Bristol and severe amounts of tire wear from last week. Monday, Greg Stucker, who is the head of racing for Goodyear, was on Sirius XM Satellite Radio. We've been quoting him here in the last segment or so. And lastly, he credited the drivers. He did say this, quote, kudos to the drivers. It's what they've been saying. It was extreme yesterday, but I think what transpired just reinforced what they've been saying and how important it is to put some of the control of the car back in the hands of the drivers, because it really does make a difference. And I say drivers, but also the hands of the crew chiefs. Crew chiefs had to go to work yesterday also. So they needed to try to make adjustments with the race cars so the drivers could keep the tires underneath them. So I think if you poll the garage, most everybody had a pretty darn good time. Chase Briscoe said it. Those words were effectively echoed by Brad Keselowski and Denny Hamlin, and Chase Elliott, and several other drivers that I heard. Even in a challenging situation, Stuckey continued, because it was fun behind the wheel. It was fun for the crew chiefs to have to make the adjustments. We thank everybody at Fox Sports. There's one more picture that I want to show you. Post-race coverage from Fox Sports. And I grabbed this, but I credit Fox Sports because it's their picture. This is when they're interviewing Kyle Larson. But looking over his shoulder, looking above the 48 car of Alex Bowman sitting on pit road. Look at the track, specifically up by the wall. That's a lot of marbles sitting up there.
And the way it was sitting there looking on the top of the track, it looks like what you would see when water hits sand at a beach and gives that wave look. That's exactly what it looked like.
I'm here to tell you, and you know this better than anybody, but I know this very well as well, because I've seen it at tracks like Talladega, Darlington, Richmond, Homestead, Miami, and by watching Indycar, watching Formula One, and any other form of racing effectively. You get these racing slicks, and they get hot. Heck, your road tires get hot going down the road. That's why if you have an in-car monitor of your tire pressure and you take a trip, we'll just say what John and I took this morning from Chelsea to here, from my home to the station to do this show. What started off at 34 to 35 PSI ended up at about 40 to 41 PSI. Why? Heat built up in the tires.
Yep.
And that's just going down the interstate. I'm not even pressuring them. I'm not putting any major stress on them other than contact between rubber and asphalt. That's it.
Right.
They're putting a whole lot of stress on these tires. They're building up a lot of heat in these tires. And that much heat, you roll through those marbles, you're going to feel like you're on ice skates.
That you are. That you are.
Tain't pretty.
Nope.
Goodyear has promised they're going to set up a tire test with NASCAR and Bristol Motor Speedway before the series returns to the high-banked half-mile concrete track in September for a playoff race. Stucker said he doesn't expect big changes because he wants to keep up notable tire wear, but he wants to get a better understanding of what the tires are likely to do so they have a better idea of what to expect. What I'm reading into that is that they're looking to create a run of about 75 to 80, 85 laps before they begin to shut down.
Yeah, I was thinking about 75 to 90 at least.
That wouldn't be a bad run right there.
No, not at all.
Now, here's the thing. Whatever you might have thought about last Saturday night's or Sunday's action at Bristol, in the Cup Series, it certainly didn't lack for on-track action, especially when it came to passing. He mentioned this. Chase Briscoe alone passing 9 cars in one lap. The official number of lead changes is now a new all-time record at Bristol. The old mark was 40. The new mark is 54. 40 was set back in 1991 when Rusty Wallace bested Ernie Irvan by the win by a slim margin of only 2 feet at the line. But yeah, 54 passes for the lead. Now that's far from the all-time record. We hold that at Talladega. 88 official lead changes. But still, that's a lot of on-track action. If you're looking for passing, Bristol delivered last weekend.
Yep.
Ain't no doubt about it. It was entertaining. Again, I want to make sure that I say this very, very pointedly. It was fun to watch last Sunday. I don't want to see that exact situation every weekend, though. I don't want to see those tires shut off like that every weekend.
No. Yeah, they can't afford to shut off like that every weekend. A track like Bristol, I would say Darlington, Dover, Homestead, which Homestead is notorious for it already. But if you go with that same compound at Homestead, you may be lucky to make 20.
Don't want to do that.
Not at all.
So we'll find out how things go.
Tracks like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd make the race probably wild.
Yeah. On something of a higher note, Hendrick Motorsports with Chase Elliott, the one actually doing it this time around for the organization, led their 80,000th lap in the Cup Series competition. That extends their all-time lead. Second place in Cup Series history following the race at Bristol is Petty Enterprises. Petty, in Cup competition, has led a grand total of 59,969 laps. In other words, they are more than 20,000 laps led behind Hendrick Motorsports. Wow. For the record, Jeff Bodine led the organization's very first lap back in April 29th, 1984 at Martinsville. Since then, some 29 drivers have led laps for Hendrick Motorsports, with 16 of them leading at least 1,000 laps while driving Hendrick race cars. The most, not surprisingly, Jeff Gordon. He led just shy of 25,000 laps in all. He was also noted for having led Hendrick Motorsports' 10,000th, 20,000th, 30,000th, 40,000th, and 50,000th lap. Jeez. Good grief.
Yeah.
The team has led at least one lap on 35 different Cup Series tracks. The one that's currently on the schedule that they have yet to lead the field at, well, we've only run one race there. It's the Chicago Street Course. So that may change come later on this year.
Sure, it'll probably change.
They also have, as an organization, the record for number of laps led on 21 different tracks. I also note they've led more than 15,000 laps at tracks in Virginia, Richmond and Martinsville, specifically noting because of, they wanted that noted specifically because, well, it's not where Rick Hendrick was born. He was born in North Carolina, but he grew up in Palmer Springs, Virginia. So it's his home. NASCAR, taking cars over to Japan. We saw that back in 1996 first. They ran Suzuka that year and again in 1997. Then they came back in 1998, competed at the Twin Ring Motegi course before they ended their 3-year exhibition run there. But Kamui Kobayashi, who's set to run this weekend at COTA for 2311, not 23x1 racing, feels as though NASCAR would be welcomed back to his home country with open arms if series officials were willing to cross the Pacific Ocean again. The former F1 driver talked to Racer.com this week, said, quote, "I think for sure there's an opportunity. It is very different than any other type of motorsport. It's the sound. NASCAR is an amazing sound. It's an amazing sound compared to any other type of car, even Formula One." And that's something that he would know about because, again, he's an ex-F1 driver. NASCAR keeps talking about going places. Canada and Mexico obviously make the most sense because you can easily take a hauler and go there. Japan?
Say Atlas Air Cargo that has 747s to make a lot of money. Let's see which racetracks do. Okay, here we go. More tracks in Japan. Tracks that they may not already hit, they hadn't already hit.
Sure.
Let's see here.
Probably have to go through and check and make sure that they would fit what they need.
Yeah, I've got to go to a different route here.
All right. While you're doing that, one other note here. Stewart Haas Racing driver Chase Briscoe announced this week, just yesterday as a matter of fact, he is restarting his 410 sprint car organization. Chase Briscoe Racing for this 2024 year said he plans to have the team enter about 35 races in the number 5 sprint car, and he himself will split driving duties with a kid who's coming up through midget racing, Carter Sarf. Sponsorship from Mahindra Tractors, his Cup Series sponsor, and Dorset Automotive. He noted his brother Kevin Briscoe is going to be the crew chief and handle day-to-day operations for Chase Briscoe Racing.
All right. Here we go. You have Motegi and Suzuka.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
You have the Autopolis Road Course. That's
Sure you do.
Grade 2 FIA track.
Okay.
You have Fuji Speedway, which is a FIA Grade 1. Okayama, Grade 2.
Grade 1 means Formula 1 could technically run there. Grade 2 means it would need a couple of upgrades to be able to.
Tsukuba,
I've heard of them, yeah.
The Tokyo Street Circuit, Tokachi Speedway.
So they could do a grand tour. To use the phrase from Amazon Prime.
Japan only has one oval. One.
Okay.
Motegi. Yeah, all the other ones,
road courses. Okay. Well, we'll see. I don't know. It's not something that NASCAR's been talking about here for a long time. When they talk about going international, they're really talking Canada and Mexico. Someplace where you can take the haulers out of Charlotte, North Carolina area and take them wherever you need to go, as opposed to flying stuff everywhere.
So, I'm sorry, but I would rather put a Connex with a car in it and what tools I needed and put it on an airplane and go to Japan before I sent my $1.5 million, $2 million hauler
through Mexico.
Sorry,
Again,
but I'm just saying. We're gonna need
special permission to have like the American military escort them if we go to Mexico City. I mean, it's going to be horrible.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, let's not. Because of the fact that, and again, this is one of those deals where we're just kind of throwing things up in the air and seeing what sticks. Big stories of the week making sense. We're not going to continue on into Xfinity and Truck Series. We'll get back to them. We're going to switch over to Formula One because last race, 2 weeks ago this weekend, the Thursday before that race was to be run in Saudi Arabia, Carlos Sainz came down with appendicitis. And truth be told, it's really no surprise after sitting out one race due to his appendix being taken out that Carlos Sainz is expected to be back in the car this weekend. He came down with appendicitis again the Thursday before the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, got replaced by reserve driver Ollie Behrman. He raced well enough to finish 7th in his debut. We detailed that last week. Doctors, however, have cleared Sainz. Traveled to Australia early this week. Was seen on Wednesday, our time, it's Thursday in Australia, riding a bicycle around the paddock area and along portions of the road course. Now, it's not terrifically unusual to come back fairly quickly. Back in 2022, Alex Albon took less than a month to get back in the car after his own bout with appendicitis. But Behrman is on hand in Australia, planning to run the F2 race that's going to be run there as a support series. But he's also on standby because Sainz told media early on Friday before they got into the cars for practice that while he felt good traveling to Melbourne and has no pain immediately, if things were to take a downturn at any point during practice on Friday, he would withdraw from the race and allow Behrman to qualify the car. Guess who qualified the car?
Sainz.
I guess he's feeling all right. Speaking of being back, 3-time defending F1 champion Max Verstappen, who has not been ridiculously complimentary, shall we say, of Formula One and their expansion to try and push out to 24 races in a year over the last couple of years. He's not been all that thrilled about it. And he has threatened, on more than one occasion, to walk away from the sport. To which I basically looked straight into the camera here on CRN Live on YouTube and spoke directly into the microphone on this show. And producer John and Matt can back me up on this. I basically challenged Max Verstappen. If you think anybody's going to miss you, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. And let's find out. If you think that Formula One revolves around your world and you leaving it because you're upset that you have to run 24 races in a year is going to cause everybody to walk away from the series, I hate to tell you, but you're wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong.
You want to find out? Walk. Well, bluff's been called. He signed a contract extension with Red Bull Racing. It's going to run through 2028. And maybe even more importantly to that, Verstappen said in the announcement of the signed contract, he intends to see it through to its completion. Things were a little more questionable just a couple of weeks ago with the allegations against team boss Christian Horner and then more allegations coming out against Helmut Marko, who is Red Bull's motorsport advisor, and from what we understand, quite the big ear for one Max Verstappen. And he and Helmut Marko have a really close relationship from what we understand. Some claims stated that if Marko happened to be forced out of Red Bull, then Verstappen might walk away too. Verstappen, however, noted upon arrival in Australia that he's happy right where he is. He has no plans to leave any time before he fulfills this entirety of this contract. He said, quote, "That's why I, of course, signed the deal in the first place. I'm happy with the team, and of course, it's very important that we try and keep the key players in the team for a longer period of time. As, of course, that's where the performance is as well." Yeah, we've seen that. Geez, have we seen that? I mean, to almost ridiculous nth degrees.
A lot.
As much as we want to say, if we see Kyle Busch's name on a Craftsman Truck Series or Xfinity Series roster, we want to pencil him in as the winner. We're pretty much penciling in Max Verstappen in every single race on the Formula One slate.
I'm not penciling in. I'm writing it in with a Sharpie.
Verstappen continued at the end of the day. It's a performance business. It's the same as if I wouldn't perform. I wouldn't be sitting here, so I know how that works. But for sure, with the deal in place, it's also my intention to be here to the end because it would be a great story for me personally just to see it out to the end because it basically means I've been part of one family and one team. Okay, we'll see how it works. Does he walk away at the end of this contract? Is he done with Formula One at the end of 2028?
He's three-time champion. At the end of 28, he's got the potential to be 7-time.
And as many races as he's winning with already 50 wins to his credit.
If you walk away, if you get to the end of that and you're a 7-time champion, what more do you have to lose?
Yeah. At that point in time, you want to break the three-way tie that you currently have with Lewis Hamilton and Michael Schumacher. And again, you've got rest of 2024, all of 25, 26, 27, and 28. That's 4+ years to add to you already total of 50 wins. And Lewis Hamilton sitting at, what, 102, 103?
Something like that. Hey, I was wrong. At the end of 28, if he won titles all the way through 28, he would be the outright title holder at 8.
So he could be the all-time record holder for F1 titles, and he could be the all-time holder for race wins.
I mean, what else do you have to lose?
At that point in time, you're playing with house money.
And at the pace he's winning on, he would annihilate that win total. He could easily annihilate that win total.
Yeah, see, from his barking about wanting to leave, I see 28 being his swan song year.
You might be right. Then again, he might have rewritten the record books by that point in time, and he's got nothing else to prove.
And he's having so much fun driving, and he's doing whatever. Look what Shane Van Gisbergen is doing. And he is adamant in the media and public and saying he's having more fun driving over here than he's ever had.
Mm-hmm. And he's a 3-time champion in the Australian Supercar Series.
Yeah.
Speaking of Australia, Williams team. Oh, things got nasty over there. Tell you what, we're going to take a break here. We'll detail this. We'll detail this when we come back. But Williams team had to make a decision. Because apparently they came to Australia, we'll just say, a little unprepared. How unprepared? They're only going to field one car for the race tonight. Huh? Yeah, stick around. We'll tell you more about that. We'll also talk about Zach Brown and his future at McLaren Racing. And, hey, if you got a job in Formula One, apparently you're going to be able to stick around Formula One for years and years.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. Hour number 2 underway. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers with you this week. Appreciate you joining us here, whether it is on our flagship station, 95.1 The Mountain, or via the app, which you can take anywhere with you and listen to the show. Just look up The Mountain for any of your smart devices. You can catch it there, or go on to YouTube. Look up CRN Live. Williams team headed to Australia a bit underprepared. Certainly unprepared for a potential big-time crash. Well, that bit him in the hindquarters on Friday during the first practice session when Alex Albon got involved in a crash that was major enough that his car was considered a loss. I'll show you the picture of it. There it is right there. Yeah, that thing's toast. They didn't have a spare car. Not one. Not a square to spare. To throw it back to Seinfeld. So the team ends up having a decision to make. That picture, by the way, that you see on CRN Live is courtesy of flashscore.com. They decided that in that one remaining car, technically Logan Sargent's car, that they're going to pull Logan Sargent out and put Alex Albon in it. So Sargent misses the race. The team released a statement that said this, quote, while Logan should not have to suffer from a mistake that he did not make, he will. Every race counts when the midfield is tighter than ever, so we have made the call based upon our best potential to score points. In other words, Logan shouldn't have to suffer this, but in comparison to Alex, we feel like he sucks, so we pulled him out of the car. I mean, am I reading that wrong?
You are not.
Okay, I was just wanting to check.
Guys.
Well, John is over there laughing.
Guys. We have a team. We have a team that is competing in the Formula One World Championship Series.
Mm-hmm.
We have a team that does not bring a backup car to an event.
Mm-hmm.
You granted, you don't see very many accidents in a race or let alone a practice session that will total a car completely out to where the point is unrepairable.
True, but
Back to my point here. We have a team that is competing in the Formula One World Championship Series that is not adequately and sufficiently prepared because of your goof up not bringing either enough spare parts or even a spare car to an event as a safety net just in case. So we're gonna
kill any confidence that our young American-born driver might have had.
We're gonna kill
by saying
it.
You suck.
Yeah. We're gonna take you out of the car and put him in there so we can have our best chance to score points. Okay, if I'm James Bowles and I'm team principal, hey buddy, you goofed, you screwed up, you wrecked, you sit.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the front end of that car. I should say, try to find the front end of that car.
Yeah, it's gone.
Gone.
Yeah. You don't have enough parts to rebuild that. You didn't bring another car. Punish the driver. Punish the driver who did that.
All right.
Now correct me if I'm wrong. This was in practice, right?
This is in practice.
Yeah, this is the first practice.
Were there other cars involved?
No.
That was a
Just
single car
him.
wreck.
This may be. This is at 9:07 a.m. on March 23rd. This will be the first time that I have a disagreement with both of you at the same time.
Oh, come on.
Ever on this show, in my history of this show, first time I've ever disagreed with both of you. Look at the right front of the car.
Okay.
Outside of the suspension, the main body and the main hull is intact.
Yeah.
That suspension is replaceable.
Assuming that they brought enough parts to do it.
I'm sure they could probably get the parts to do so. I mean, because that's nothing but looks like, in American terms, hub.
We presume.
Presume.
Yeah.
By looking at the sheer photo, hub, spindle, control arm.
Okay.
That's replaceable.
But again,
You got to have the parts to replace it, though.
Right, but you call a car a total loss, that means that whole car has got damage all the way through the body, and the whole side pod is tore off.
It's not like the wreck that took Romain Grosjean out of Haas F1 forever,
or where
the car cut in half.
Or where Mick Schumacher hit the wall and ripped the car in half, or was it at Saudi Arabia?
I think it was.
We can't see the other side of the car, though.
Yeah. I mean, granted, we're going by what we see on this picture, but either way.
I see 2 tires that are up.
This is a situation where Williams says, effectively admitting, we were caught with our pants down as being totally unprepared. And because we're unprepared, we have to only enter one car.
And here's where I'm going to...
And we have to punish the driver who did not have the problem.
Right. And here's where I'm going to end my statement on this right here. And I'm going to borrow it from quite a few several people that follow Formula One on Twitter, Twix, X, whatever. Andretti Global would have had a backup car.
Ooh.
Probably
That's
2.
an interesting point. That's an interesting point, isn't it? Formula One.
And to borrow a one-word phrase that used to be on the Friday Night Light show on MTV that Russ Probst used to say, ding.
Yep. Zach Brown is going to remain with McLaren. No, not the country singer. Zach Brown's going to remain as McLaren CEO at McLaren Racing in a new contract that was announced on Friday. This one will run through 2030. McLaren thinks 2 years more of their guy than Red Bull does of Max Verstappen. No, that's probably not true. I'm just throwing it out there. Brown joined McLaren back in 2016, first coming on board as the head of McLaren's technology group. Only 2 years later, though, he was named the new chief executive officer of the racing division. Since then, he has expanded out the racing ventures of McLaren. They've joined Formula E. They've joined Indycar. They joined Extreme E, which is apparently about to turn into Extreme H because they're going to go to hydrogen fuel cells. Brown said of having some stability with his new contract, quote, I'm thrilled to be able to continue leading McLaren Racing and to be part of such a historic race team. It's a privilege to work alongside the talented men and women across McLaren's different race series. Together, we'll continue to push the boundaries of motorsport, strive to be the highest sport, blah, blah, blah. In other words, they want to win. He's just happy, and he's probably getting paid a pretty good amount of money to do it, too. How many times have we heard, if you're in and you know people, you're good for life, you're set for life?
Most cases.
I can sit here and tell you that because of the number of people that I know within the broadcasting industry, I'm fairly convinced that if I needed a job tomorrow, I could get one in a fairly short period of time. Broadcasting's like that. Formula One apparently is very much so too. If you've ever gotten a job in Formula One and had any amount of success, you got a job for life. I give you Simone Resta. Resta worked for Ferrari for many years before the budget cap came into effect, and then to help kind of keep their personnel employed but take some of the money off the books, Ferrari moved, and I use the Air Bunnies for that, him over to Haas F1. You know, that team that basically Ferrari is giving everything to. And I mean that. Well, it appears that Resta decided to leave that role during this past offseason, and he returned to Ferrari for about as long as it took to type up his resignation. Signed by Mercedes now. That's going to reunite him with James Allison, who is now the Mercedes technical director, as the pair worked together at Ferrari from 2013 to 2016. Thing about it is, he's got to wait out a period of time. They call it, what do they call it? A garden period over there in Europe. We would call it here in the United States a non-compete clause. Whatever. He's not going to join the Mercedes staff officially until reportedly the 2025 season. I think he's doing okay financially. He'll make it. Even if all he can do is go gardening.
Yeah, I think he's okay.
And here's the thing. All this drama about the FIA president, Mohammed bin Sulayem, and all these investigations, 2 of them really that were going on at the same time. If you didn't see this coming, you're likely blind. Stevie Wonder. The FIA has cleared bin Sulayem of any interference when it comes to the 2023 Saudi Arabian or Las Vegas races.
Who would have seen that coming?
All 3 of us. Whistleblowers had alleged that he strong-armed the Middle Eastern head of open-wheel racing in order to clear Fernando Alonso from any wrongdoing in last year's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And then, later on in the year, apparently, a whistleblower alleged that he urged officials not to homologate or clear the street course that was going to be used for the Las Vegas race. And if it hadn't been cleared, they couldn't have run the race, right? After all the money that they spent to put it on. An independent investigation was begun, took about 30 days to complete. Officials state that they interviewed about a dozen people before they worked up their summation of their findings. The result, he's cleared. The FIA statement read, quote, after reviewing the results of the inquiries, the Ethics Commission were unanimous in their determination that there was no evidence to substantiate allegations of interference of any kind involving FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem. The statement concluded that all the allegations, quote, against the FIA president were unsubstantiated and strong evidence beyond any reasonable doubt was presented to support the determination of the FIA Ethics Committee. Not everyone's convinced, though. For example, 7-time F1 champion Sir Lewis Hamilton is not convinced. He actually told media upon his arrival in Australia that, quote, he never has, unquote, supported bin Sulayem as the head of the FIA and never will. All right, then.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, here's the thing. Being the soap opera that it is, the FIA ended one plot line and begins another. They now have to fend off one Susie Wolff. She is the wife of Mercedes boss Toto Wolff, Susie, also the head of the all-female F1 Academy series, placed there by the FIA. She's filed a criminal complaint against her bosses at the FIA for the short-lived investigation into the allegations of conflict of interest due to her marriage to Toto. These were allegations we talked about, what was it, around the holidays, Christmas, New Year's?
Something like that, yeah.
Those allegations appeared in a magazine in Europe called Business F1. The report claimed at least one rival F1 team's boss had voiced concerns about so-called pillow talk between Toto and Susie. The FIA began their investigation, but shortly after announced they had started it, they quickly added that they dropped it, but noted that the Wolves were looking into legal options as a result of the report and the investigation anyway. Susie Wolff put out a statement on social media that read this week, quote, I can confirm that I personally filed a criminal complaint in the French courts, okay, on the 4th of March in relation to the statements made about me by the FIA last December. There has still not been any transparency or accountability in relation to the conduct of the FIA and its personnel in this matter. I feel more than ever that it is important to stand up, call our improper behavior out, and make sure that people are held to account. While some might think silence absolves them from responsibility, it does not. Now, the FIA is technically based in France, so that's why the suit was placed there. The FIA, citing the legal action having just been filed, declined comment.
I don't know what's more corrupt. The little district in Northern Virginia and Southern Maryland, known as D.C. I don't know if that is. I don't know if the NCAA is or the FIA is.
It's a close race.
Real close. I may be 3 wide Atlanta finish right there.
It's a photo finish right to the end. The cross-pollination of sports continues. Alpine driver Pierre Gasly has announced he's invested into a semi-pro soccer club in France. Gasly becomes the third partner in the ownership group of FC Versailles, which competes in the country's Championnat National. It's tier 3 of the French soccer hierarchy, for those of you that care. Gasly said, quote, I am delighted to get involved with FC Versailles because I've always wanted to get involved in professional football. The trio of owners own a team that is currently competing in a stadium that holds about 7,500 people. They do state, though, they hope to upgrade the stadium and the team with the intention of taking the team up to the country's top level, which would then allow them to compete not only on a national but a continental championship scale. They've got a pretty cool thing over there called relegation. I like relegation, actually, to be real honest with you. I wish we brought it over here between the league that the Birmingham Legion compete in. Is that United Soccer League? Is that USL, John?
I believe it is.
And Major League Soccer, to where the worst team in Major League Soccer would drop down to USL and the champion of USL would move up to the MLS. I think it'd be fun. It'd add a little drama to it. Speaking of drama, SRX is next.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. For more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show. Just within the last few weeks, really, we've talked about the Superstar Racing experience and how they said, you know what, we're going to punt on the 2024 season. Even though we had 5 of the 6 races planned, we had a deal with ESPN in place to run all 6 of our races whenever we figured out where that 6th one was going to go. We're still going to basically cease operations for the year. And we were thinking, okay, maybe they're just going to regroup and be able to come back, right? No.
Or are they?
The more that we kind of went through this process, the more it seemed like they were probably more gone than anything. And then just before the show began, we saw a headline that said that Don Hawk, the CEO of the Superstar Racing Experience, moved to the Skip Barber Racing School. We now have more reason why.
There is a reason why. And released from Racer.com yesterday at about 11:45 Eastern, 10:45 Central, the Skip Barber Racing School announced that it has acquired the Superstar Racing Experience. This is some baselines about the Skip Barber Racing School. Quoted from Dan DeMonte, the Chief Marketing Officer of Skip Barber, "This is an exciting time for the entire SBRS team. We take great pride in providing valuable and exciting events to the motorsports community and now have the opportunity to continue that with the SRX series." Don Hawk, the former CEO of SRX, joined Skip Barber as a chief strategy officer, and he is quoted as saying, "For years, I watched the Skip Barber Racing School and its graduates, as well as those that just stopped in for a refresher course in road racing, and now have the opportunity to join the senior management team here at Skip Barber, where we will bring back the SRX to its fans while also helping them with the overall vision and business across the USA and beyond."
This tells me that Tony Stewart is now fully divested of any involvement in SRX, as is Ray Evernham.
Evernham was done after year one, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he still had something of a financial stake from what I was led to believe, even though he was hands-off day-to-day operations. Tony Stewart pretty much had it. This tells me Tony Stewart's now done too.
Yep. The baseline is just about the Skip Barber School, but the final line in the article is, plans for the 2024 season are currently being formed and more will be revealed in the coming weeks. Boom.
We'll keep an eye on it for you. To the Xfinity Series, BJ McLeod Motorsports is apparently reorganizing. And because of that, the race team has said that they're going to become a part-time operation for the remainder of this year. A statement from the team said they're committed to building an organization based upon their on-track performance and ensuring that they're competitive from week to week. So they do have a little bit of work to do. Driver and co-owner BJ McLeod said, quote, although we've had a great start to the 2024 season, earning 2 top 15s and a top 20 in the first 4 races, we are committed to building a top 15 contending team week in and week out. Right now, we feel a part-time schedule will allow us the extra time we need to build up our infrastructure to be able to compete at that level for our remaining races in 2024 and beyond. We're optimistic about these changes, look forward to returning to full-time competition in the Xfinity Series 2025 season. This is a gamble.
Big. Very big.
Because we have seen this before. Witness the SRX Series. They found themselves a nice little parachute in the Skip Barber Racing School, but if Skip Barber hadn't stepped up, we don't know what the situation with SRX would be.
Very true.
Let me go back, 40 years now, to the original USFL, who had 3 rather successful seasons, airing on ABC and the fledgling ESPN, even before those two were connected. And both entities said, if you stay in the spring, we will sign a multi-year contract with you to continue to air your football games for about $250 million per year. That was a not insignificant amount of money in the mid-1980s. It's a fairly significant amount of money now. Mm-hmm. But because there was a faction of ownership, reportedly led by Donald Trump, that said, we want to go and take on the NFL now, they suspended operations after year number 3 and said, yeah, we'll be back in the fall of 1986. Did they ever reappear? No. Not in that form.
Nope.
This is a gamble. To say that we're going to do a full reorganization, try and build up our infrastructure when technically you've got very little money coming in because you're not running every single race, that's a gamble. I do hope that BJ McLeod is able to bet on himself and win. I do. I'm rooting for him because he's one of those underdog guys that you automatically want to root for and see do well.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Time will tell. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is all but retired from racing. He's definitely retired from Cup Series racing. He admits that. But having since done that, he's run at least one Xfinity Series race for his own organization, Junior Motorsports, every single year since then. Usually, that race is on a short track, although he has raced at Homestead Miami Speedway. For 2024, he's confirmed where he'll be racing in his number 88 Junior Motorsports Star Car. He'll be back at Bristol Motor Speedway.
Shocker.
He ran the fall race at Bristol last year. He was a contender for the win, even led 47 laps on that evening. While running in the top 5, though, he suddenly had to pull off the track and into the pits because his smoke filled with cockpit because a fire had broken out that damaged his fire suit. They showed pictures of it after the fact. His night was done. Apparently not wanting that to be his lasting memory of the track, he's going to climb back in the 88 in September, try it again. Primary sponsorship coming from, and this will shock you, I know, longtime Junior Motorsports partner Hellman's Mayo. They've signed a multi-year extension to their deal with the organization. I think almost every one-off race that he has done since he retired from Cup Series racing has been Hellman's on the car.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's not a bad thing. I think it's great. So here comes the other part of this particular equation. How long does Dale Earnhardt Jr. think he's going to be able to do this one race, maybe 2, in a season? Well, the Hall of Famer said, quote, I'll run as long as I can. Said after the race at Bristol last year. This is last year's quote, even after he was singed by a fire. Quote, I like running one here and there. I think I still feel young. I overachieved tonight in my eyes in terms of how I ran. So I guess that gave me some confidence to try to do one here and there for a couple more years. Here's the deal, boys and girls. If you like racing, don't stop.
Bingo.
If you like what you're doing, don't stop.
Bingo.
I've said this to many, many people.
Ding.
I like working and broadcasting enough to where I will probably work until noon on the day of my death. Which that could be any day now. No, I'm just
Easy.
kidding. I know. Sorry, I just turned it morbid, didn't I? Hey, has anybody here ever heard of Viking Motorsports? Crickets?
I haven't.
Bueller? Have you heard of a Viking Motorsports?
Well, I hadn't, but until I seen what car number was on it. That explains where the 4th RSS car came from.
Bingo! Here they come. They got a big name coming into race for him as well. It is one Matt DiBenedetto. We got a picture of the car with Matt standing beside it on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of TobyChristie.com. So what do we know about Viking Motorsports? Well, I'll tell you this. It is owned and operated by a guy by the name of Dan Sackett. Dan Sackett is the CEO of SIAPS, S-C-I-A-P-S, SIAPS Incorporated. SIAPS Incorporated, in case you missed it, has been a sponsor in NASCAR over the last couple of years, most notably with RSS Racing. They'll run a number 38. It's the number that RSS Racing has been running in collaboration with Viking, but they failed to qualify for the first two of the first 4 races of 2024. CJ McLaughlin was behind the wheel. Well, McLaughlin's out. Viking is going to take over fielding the ride, apparently in still cooperation with RSS Racing, though. Sackett said he plans to put DiBenedetto in the 38 car in the majority of the races left this year. Plans apparently to go full-time in the next couple of years, maybe.
Sounds like it.
I'll say this. Putting DiBenedetto in the car,
That's not a bad thing.
fantastic move. No disrespect to CJ McLaughlin, but of the two, I'm going to go DiBenedetto every single time. Go for it. I hope he does well. Craftsman Truck Series news. I actually watched the movie. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's probably upper tier of some of the most of the racing movies that I've ever watched. Talking about the movie Gran Turismo. It's not common, but you can actually get into a racing career by using video games as how you get into it. You can actually turn that into a chance. Anyway, witness one, Vicente Salas. Salas will get his dream shot by jumping into the number 20 Chevrolet Silverado for Young's Motorsports later today at COTA. I want to thank eNASCAR.com for the pic of Salas that you're about to check out on CRN Live on YouTube, as he already has himself a trophy. You can tell in the Advanced Auto Parts Weekly series. Where's that?
That's more than likely. Looks like Hickory.
Hickory Motorsports.
Looks like it.
Okay. Salas was noted by his time in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. Said of that chance, quote, I'm beyond excited. It's really a full circle moment. First car I ever sat in was at Home Depot. It was a number 20 Tony Stewart car. I think I was about 2 or 3 years old at the time. Honestly, it is what has driven me up until now. Sitting in that race car and having that feeling, and to be able to make my first start in the truck series driving the number 20 as well, Young's Motorsports, it just feels surreal. Salas said he got his tire, yes, I used a pun, rolling towards this start by reaching out to fellow iRacing competitor Tyler Young, who happens to be the Young Motorsports team principal. The two sides were not able to complete a deal, get him into a truck last year, but the two sides continue to work on getting him some sponsorship in the offseason. Miramar Financial Group stepped up. They're going to be on his hood today as the primary sponsor of that truck.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Could be. And then there's, I'm gonna throw back the Wayback Machine here, to borrow the phrase from Wayne's World. Party time, excellent. Back in my days of when I was at, remember the old Birmingham International Raceway, the late lamented one. Thanks for nothing, Larry Langford, jerk. There was a time, and I can't remember what year it was.
Please, let's roll back 2 seconds. Tell us how you really feel, Steve.
Jerk. I can't remember whether it was 2004 or 2005 season.
Ding.
But being a short track, emotion sometimes gets the better of drivers. And there was contact and a wreck caused by one driver to another. And I can't even remember who the heck the drivers were. Doesn't matter. Race ends, everybody goes down there, and I'm looking down on the pits, and I'm noticing that the drivers from the car that got wrecked, the team members, including the driver from the car that got wrecked, are now all of a sudden starting to make their way at a fairly rapid pace towards where the driver who wrecked them was parked. And I got on the microphone over the PA system, and I said to I don't even know how many people were present in the stands at that time, and this could be heard on pit road. Guys, we don't care if you fight. We just want you to bring it out on the front stretch so we can all see it. It sounded like Talladega with Dale Earnhardt leading in the grandstands when I said that. The cheering and the laughing was just overwhelming. And I kept looking, and all of a sudden the pace between the team running over to the people who wrecked him slowed significantly. And I saw a couple of people start to kind of bend over. I could tell I had gotten them to laugh as well. Now, why do I say all that? I say all that to say this. There was contact on the track between Nick Sanchez and Stuart Friesen that led to off-track contact between the two after the race. On the track on lap 220 of the 250-lap race, coming off of turn 4, Sanchez was coming up on the outside of Friesen when Friesen drifted out to the wall, and he got turned across the front of Sanchez's truck. Sanchez had damage, finished 17th. Friesen was a bit worse off. He finished 22nd. Friesen was notably upset, went over to confront Sanchez, and after exchanging words with a weird little smirk, by the way, on Nick Sanchez's face, Friesen apparently had enough and began a push and shove battle that crew members broke up before it turned into all-out fisticuffs.
I walked up on this.
Did you?
Fun to watch.
I bet it was.
To watch.
Here's the thing. To a certain extent, NASCAR will let the whole boys have at it thing go before they break it up. But again, if you're going to do it, make sure the fans can see it. Because in the end, we just want to be entertained. And we don't mind the occasional fight. We don't want to see it every week, but occasionally, sure, knock yourself out.
Oh, they could see it in broad daylight.
Oh,
It was easy to see, but it's just,
Mm-hmm.
It was Sanchez just going like, smirking like he was.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Friesen had enough of it, and he was done with it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yep.
We turn our attention to the straight liners here with the National Hot Rod Association. Mike Salinas showed up well in the season opening Gator Nationals a couple of weeks ago, but now something's gone wrong. He didn't say what. He says just that he needs to tend to some personal health matters and announced he's stepping aside. He'll turn over his Scrappers Racing Top Fuel ride to his daughter, Jasmine Salinas, starting this weekend at the Winter Nationals at In-N-Out Burger Dragway in Pomona, California. Thanks to NHRA.com for the look at Jasmine and her new ride that you can see on CRN Live on YouTube. Again, Mike didn't detail what issues he's having. He just said this, quote, "I look forward to returning to the driver's seat once I'm ready." Jasmine has got the best crew in drag racing, led by Rob Flynn, Aaron Cave, Adam Cave, and Troy Fashing. So there's no doubt in my mind the Scrappers racing team is going to be a force at the track, and they're just as confident in her as she is in them. Now, Jasmine is not what we would call uber experienced. She just got her Top Fuel license for Nitro last year, but she and her father said that their intention was to expand out the Scrappers racing program to field 2 full-time rides for the father-daughter duo by the end of this year. Mike Salinas says he'll be back, but he has not targeted a specific date. Whatever it is, our thoughts and our prayers go with you, Mike, and good luck to Jasmine.
No doubt, and I think she's going to surprise a few folks.
I think with the proper support group and the trust that Mike and apparently Jasmine has in them, I think that's going to help.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's a big, big help. Crossover between NASCAR and the NHRA. That's obviously happening when it comes to Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart's bringing one more aspect when it comes to NASCAR, and that is special paint schemes. He's going to bring a special look and break it out for Pomona this weekend. We'll tell you about it. In fact, we'll show it to you when we come back as we continue talking the National Hot Rod Association next.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. fuel only. Fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
We're going to make a quick rush to the finish here because we're going to be wrapping up just a little bit early today as our flagship station hosting the Championship Racing Network has to join the PRN coverage in progress because they're about to do qualifying out there in COTA.
Yep, wrapping up practice now.
Yep. So here's the thing. Let's get back into it right now. We're talking about the NHRA. And if you liked Tony Stewart's debut at the Gator Nationals, where he qualified 9th quickest in the 16-car field, then you're going to like him when he comes back and takes a page out of the NASCAR playbook and brings a special paint scheme to his Top Fuel ride. Celebrating the 50th anniversary of Mobil 1 synthetic oil. You'll be able to see it here momentarily on CRN Live on YouTube. I like the look of that Top Fueler. But then again, I've always been kind of partial to a black and gold paint scheme.
Every time I see a black and gold paint scheme, it makes me think of the Lotus Indycars.
Yep. And I liked
every
him.
single time.
I liked him a lot. So he's bringing that along with a special fire suit to match. And we got a picture of that as well. So, yep. Mobil 1's long been a sponsor of Tony Stewart and Tony Stewart's racing exploits, whether it's in NASCAR or sprint cars or whatever it is. And, of course, they've joined him now in his NHRA team. And I think it's really, really cool. But the thing about it is Buddy Hull ain't about to be outdone by smoke. So this weekend, he's debuting a paint scheme that is going to honor his team owner. When he climbs into that funny car entry, the car, which you'll be able to see on CRN Live on YouTube thanks to Jim Dunn Racing, is now a throwback to Dunn's own classic Moon Eyes look. This is the first time that he'll run it this year, and it should make a comeback later on in the year. Now, Jim Dunn has had a relationship with California's Moon Equipment Company that dates back more than 3 decades. It's the company that helped Dunn with the look that showed off the big eyes on the side of the funny car ride near the driver cockpit. Moon Equipment's long been a manufacturer of nostalgic hot rod products like tanks, discs, valve covers, and a whole lot more. So that is just the first time that that's going to show up. And I went back and I looked, and I've seen some of the older versions of it. That's actually a pretty good take on it, just updated for 2024 a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's a good-looking car, though. I like it.
Yep.
And we've got a second race of the season team debut. We got a picture of this coming up here in a moment as well. Krista Baldwin Racing is set to debut. Now, the thing about it is this is actually a takeover of the existing Pat Dakin Top Fuel operation. Baldwin, a third-generation Top Fuel racer, making her 2024 Top Fuel debut. The look that you're about to see on CRN Live on YouTube is courtesy of Krista Baldwin Racing, and that is what she's going to be running the rest of the year. If you can't see it, it's mostly black and red. There's a little bit of a cheetah spot pattern on it that Baldwin finds a way to include in pretty much all of her rides. She'll have sponsorship from AB&I Foundry, Zern, LK, Fire Safe Group, and a whole lot more when it comes to this, and I think this is her plan to become full-time in Top Fuel.
And if you can't find it, look at the wings.
Mm-hmm.
There's the cheetah pattern.
Yep.
Just saying.
There you go.
Yep.
That's a man paying attention right over there, ladies and gentlemen, producer John. But why jump from driver into driver owner? Baldwin said to the NHRA.com people, quote, "The opportunity presented itself in the offseason. I just couldn't say no. This was more than buying a new chassis for the season. This is buying a complete package to be consistently in the 3.7 second range." 3.7 sounds a little slow, actually, doesn't it? Well, here's what she said to that. Quote, "You can't go to an NHRA drag race and expect to win with a 3.8 second car. It's impossible. So now I'm creating a path for myself to propel me straight into at least the middle of the competition." Added she knows it's going to take a little bit more to win, but says first things first, wants to work on her reaction times and then start looking for more speed.
That's
Go for
a
it.
good way to approach it.
That's a good
quick
foundation.
reaction time
Sounds
will-
like a plan.
Yes,
Quicker reaction time will result in quicker speed.
that it will. And then you add more power to it. You've got the reaction time down. You're good to go. This weekend in Pomona, California, the NHRA Honors Program is going to take time during the qualifiers for Pro Stock's car division to honor all current and former military, first responders, and community heroes. Done for the first time at this very event last year, all those honored are set to receive a special NHRA Challenge coins that will go to all military and first responders. It'll be available for sale as well at the fire department coffee display in the fan midway. In other words, I don't think you can buy them online. Maybe after the fact on eBay? Who knows?
Maybe.
Nominations can be made at any time for future honorees. You can go to NHRA.com/NHRA honors to do that. And I don't know whether you saw this or not. I actually kind of stumbled across it on Wednesday, and I was fascinated by it. Fox Sports 1 ran the documentary Shirley. It's an hour-and-a-half documentary. Took a look at the life of NHRA legend Shirley Muldowney, Cha-Cha. The show looked at how she got interested in drag racing, worked her way up into becoming a Top Fuel champion. This will be replayed. I mean, heck, just last night, I happened to see something that they debuted right after the second Blue Green Vacations duel. I Am Kevin Harvick. It was the first time I'd had the chance to see that. So I guarantee you they will rerun it. Check your local listings for replay dates and times. It's worthy documentary for race fans. She pretty much lets it all hang out. I mean, she ripped for a little while on people like Connie Kalitta, Big Daddy Don Garlitz, and then realized that some of those people became lifelong friends. Very, very cool stuff. And we also want to get into a little IndyCar stuff here. I actually want to get into quite a bit of IndyCar stuff, as it turns out. After starting the season out for Arrow McLaren in place of the injured David Malukas, the team said that for this weekend and for the tests that happened earlier this week at Barber Motorsports Park, they're going to stick with Callum Ilott. Ilott qualified 16th and finished 13th in the season opener at St. Petersburg while he continues to look for a full-time ride once again in IndyCar. Starting 16th and finishing 13th in a 27-car field is not spectacular, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, what he proved is that he can get into this race and he can take care of the equipment and he can finish the race for you.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's important because, as we all know, if you're going to win a race, you have to finish it.
Well, that's a first.
Showing that you can take care of your equipment is going to help Callum Ilott in the long run. At some point in time, I think they would like to see a little bit more performance out of him.
Sure.
Because we know that that car's capable of it.
Very.
As for that test at Barber Motorsports Park, Arrow McLaren, riding a winless streak that goes back to 2022, did see Alexander Rossi and Callum Ilott sit 1 and 2 on the speed chart after the 15-car session on Monday. Chip Ganassi Racing, the defending title winners with driver Alex Palou last year, saw the defending champion be third quickest. Scott Dixon was fourth, Marcus Armstrong fifth in a team car, showing up seventh fastest on that day. I'm sorry, Marcus Armstrong, not fifth. He was seventh on that day. Rahal Letterman Lanigan had a pretty good run. Christian Lundgaard finished fifth quick. We'll get back to him in a moment. Meyershank Racing twins of Felix Rosenquist, Tom Bloomquist claims seventh and ninth on the speed chart in prep for the upcoming April race at the track just east of downtown Birmingham, which we're going to be there. I get to do PA. Can't wait. It was fun last year. Out of the blue, I want to thank a gentleman by the name of Derek Scudder. Apparently, whoever was doing it normally couldn't do it. They called Derek. Derek said, I can't do it because Derek's like doing PA for 8,000 other things. And he said, I've got a guy, though. Call me. So they called me, and I was able to do it, and they called me back to do it again this year.
I hadn't been to an IndyCar race out there in a couple of years. I'm kind of looking forward to getting back out there, too.
I think the last time you and I went, we actually stood about 6 feet away from David Letterman.
Yeah, David Letterman was there.
It was fun. Rossi's quickest lap around the 2.3 mile long road course, 1 minute, 5.959 seconds. The slowest was the A.J. Foyt duo of Santino Ferrucci and Stingray Robb. They were 1.3 and 2 seconds back, respectively, of the leader. A.J. Foyt Racing has got to figure out what's going on.
They've got no choice.
I mean, this is a team that in the offseason actually did a cooperative effort and are now working strongly with Team Penske.
Yeah.
Where's the performance?
I don't know. This one's a head scratcher because they should be better being tied up with Penske.
Absolutely, they should be better. And there's a part of me, and I don't mean any disrespect to Larry Foyt, but this kind of tells me that AJ doesn't really have a whole lot of day-to-day involvement in this.
Nope.
Because I find it really hard to believe that AJ would be putting up with this, especially after having this agreement they've got now working with Team Penske to get as much technical support and all the other stuff that they're getting from them.
Yeah, that makes two of us.
I find it real hard to believe that the competitive spirit of AJ would put up with this for any length of time whatsoever.
Yeah.
Something's got to happen over there. Something. I don't know whether it's the drivers. I don't know whether it's the cars. I don't know what it is. But whatever it is, they got problems at AJ Foyt Racing, and they better figure out what the heck it is.
Quick.
When do we usually start talking silly season? That's usually summertime, right?
I'm going to say late July to early August.
Okay. I mean, we've seen it maybe come late May into early to mid-June. This might be the earliest I've ever seen rumors like this start to pop up, though. Indycar apparently have decided we're going to start talking silly season early. The aforementioned Christian Lundgaard made his debut in IndyCar back in 2021, claimed the 2022 IndyCar Rookie of the Year honors. Last year got his very first win at the Toronto Grand Prix. So what now? Because he's in his final year of his contract with Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. It's the only team he's driven for in IndyCar so far. Reporters noting that he is in that final year of his deal have been asking him whether other teams have tried to bring him over to their side. He responded right around St. Petersburg, quote, well, I think they already have. When he was asked or pressed about which team or teams have already called, he replied, quote, all of them. Then he slowed things down a little bit and said, quote, obviously there's interest, but at the same time, I'm here to work with the team, and my trust is in this team. We have a lot of unfinished business at a lot of circuits and events. To me, the biggest disappointment has obviously been on the ovals. That's where we need to improve. That's where I want to see the most improvement. So it's going to be an interesting season. At the moment, my focus is where it needs to be, and he noted that the biggest Achilles heel for the team over the course of the 5 oval track races in 2023 being the fact that they had some 16 chances amongst all Rahal Letterman Lanigan entries over those 5 races, including adding an extra car for the Indy 500 at least. They scored exactly 0 top 10s. And to pour salt in the wound, Graham Rahal was knocked out of the Indy 500 on bump day. He had to be subbed into a car because of an injury. Mm-hmm. They've got a situation that they've got to fix. We know this can be fixed.
Oh, yeah, it can.
Let's go back 2 weeks to the St. Petersburg Grand Prix. Who won that race? Joseph Newgarden. Joseph Newgarden swept the oval track races last year, but could not win the championship because his team could not get the road and street courses right. Breaks out into 2024, claims a win at the first road/street course, St. Petersburg, of the year. If he can do that and continue to dominate the oval track races, all of a sudden Joseph Newgarden's 3-time champion in IndyCar. So we know it can be done. Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing probably really doesn't have to do that much to do it either. AJ Foyt Racing probably got more work to do. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to the beginning of the show. We were talking Goodyear and their problems on a concrete paved track, right? Well, Firestone and IndyCar have an interesting situation coming up. Because remember earlier this year when we were talking about the fact that they had to move the Music City Grand Prix off of the downtown street course because the NFL and the Tennessee Titans can't wait to start construction until after the race is over. They're going to go ahead and start construction on the new stadium, which technically they don't need. And that basically left the Music City Grand Prix without a home. So they scrambled. They found a home at Nashville Superspeedway. That puts them on a D-shaped 1.33-ish mile oval.
Yep.
That is concrete.
1.333.
Now, if you look at all the oval tracks that IndyCar runs on, this is an outlier. All the other ones are asphalt.
Big time.
This one's concrete.
Yep.
As Goodyear now knows, you can't just take your asphalt compound tire and put it on concrete and expect it to work. So Firestone's scrambling. In the wake of what the Cup Series experienced and due to the construction of all that stuff that we were talking about, going to Nashville Superspeedway, Firestone officials say they are aware, they are working right now to work up the proper tires for that race. And they noted that while testing will take place, it's not like they can just take the tire compound for any other oval track and go out there and do it. So while they haven't set a test specifically yet, Firestone officials are working right now on what they feel is going to work best, and then we'll work with IndyCar officials and the teams to set a date or maybe even multiple dates to let them have a test session or two to ensure what will work and what won't, and hope to be able to do it in time to come up with the final compound for the race. I hope they do too, because otherwise this could be ugly.
Very much so.
Downright ugly, in fact, and we don't want that. Hey, season 2 of CW's 100 Days to Indy has a debut date. John needs to know this because he works for the CW affiliate here in Birmingham. It's April the 26th. That'll be a Friday night. But first, CW's worked up a deal with Netflix to put season 1 up. If you missed any of those or all of it, it's set to drop April the 4th, so you can binge watch season 1 to get a feel for it, and then begin checking out the season and review second season. That'll leave off with the title-winning season finale of 2023 and lead into the off-season changes, and then look at the races and the events leading up to this year's running of the Indy 500. Again, this year's 100 Days to Indy will begin to air on Friday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central Time. And the thing that I find curious about that is the fact that Friday night's kind of date night.
It is.
I kind of got a problem with this particular aspect of it, because if the CW was really, really behind this, I'm not sure I would have put it on Friday nights.
Nope. I would not.
Because I think you get better ratings if you left it on like Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yep.
Inside the NFL, that show that they picked up from Showtime, John, they were airing that on Tuesday nights. You already had the spot for that sports show. Why wouldn't you just leave it?
The Cup track record at COTA just fell by 1 second.
Huh?
1 second.
Ouch. 1 full second.
Yep.
Well, there you go, boys and girls and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. We are going to leave you just a little bit early. As we said, our flagship station set to go into coverage of the Performance Racing Network's Cup Series qualifying. It will be joined in progress. So keep that in mind for those of you that are listening on the flagship station or on the app. For those of you that are on CRN Live on YouTube, we thank you very much for joining us. We remind you, Wednesday, probably by about 4 o'clock, our latest edition, episode 4 of Crossed Flags, will debut. 3 episodes are already up there. We appreciate Molly, Matt, producer John for working on the beginnings and the endings for us of it. Hope you join us again for the midweek podcast, and stick around because next week we're going to do it again for 2 hours right here on CRN Live, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's 95.1 The Mountain or the app. Appreciate you guys. Have a great week. Enjoy the racing. We'll talk to you again next week right here on the one and only Championship Racing Network.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.